Princess Liara of the Zephyrian Empire stood at the edge of the crystalline balcony, watching the stars burn in the distance. Each flickering light represented another battle, another world consumed by the endless war between her people and the human colonies. The conflict had raged for 37 years, turning entire star systems into graveyards of twisted metal and broken dreams. Her father, Emperor Valdris, entered the chamber with heavy footsteps that echoed against the polished floors. His once proud features now bore the weight of countless defeats, and his golden scales had dulled to a sickly bronze. The Zephyrians had superior technology, faster ships, and energy weapons that could slice through human armor like tissue paper. Yet somehow, impossibly, they were losing. "The Fourth Fleet has fallen," he announced, his voice barely above a whisper. "Admiral Koratha's entire armada, gone. The humans destroyed them with nothing but kinetic weapons and determination." Liara turned from the window, her violet eyes reflecting the distant starfire. "How many ships?" 2,743 vessels. "Our finest warships, reduced to debris in the Kepler system." The Emperor's claws scraped against the stone as he clenched his fists. "Their general, this Marcus Kane, he fights like a demon possessed. Every strategy we employ, every technological advantage we press, he finds a way to turn it against us." The name sent a chill through Liara's spine. Marcus Kane, the ghost of Terra, they called him. A human who had risen from a simple colony defense coordinator to the most feared military commander in known space. Stories of his tactical brilliance had spread even to Zephyrian worlds, whispered in the dark corners of military academies and government halls. "There has to be a way to end this," Liara said, moving to her father's side. "Our people are dying. Their people are dying. This war serves no one." Emperor Valdris looked at his daughter with tired eyes. She was his greatest pride and deepest sorrow, brilliant beyond measure, yet cursed to inherit an empire built on endless conflict. The High Council grows restless. Some speak of using the planet killers, of turning human worlds to ash rather than accept defeat. The thought made Liara's blood run cold. The planet killers were ancient weapons, relics from the first Zephyrian expansion centuries ago. They had been sealed away after the burning of Altair Prime, when an entire civilization had been reduced to cosmic dust in a moment of terrible rage. To unleash them again would mark the Zephyrians as monsters in the eyes of the galaxy. "Father, no. You cannot allow this. There must be another way." "What would you have me do, daughter? Our fleets crumble before human ingenuity. Our generals return in defeat or do not return at all. The humans fight not just with weapons, but with something we cannot comprehend. They call it hope." Liara moved to the strategic display that dominated the center of the chamber. Holographic representations of star systems rotated slowly, red markers indicating human-controlled space, blue showing Zephyrian territory. The line between them had been steadily moving toward Zephyrian space for the past 5 years. "What do we know of this Marcus Kane personally?" she asked, studying the display with new interest. Her father raised an eyebrow ridge. "An odd question. Why does his personal life matter?" "Humor me, father. If we are to find a solution, we must understand our enemy completely." The Emperor activated a secondary display, and the image of a human male appeared. Marcus Kane was younger than Liara had expected, perhaps 35 human years. His features were sharp and angular, with dark hair and eyes the color of Earth's ancient oceans. There was an intensity to his gaze that seemed to reach across the hologram. Born on Epsilon Colony in the Outer Rim, her father began, reading from the intelligence files. Lost his family in the first Zephyrian raids. Rose through the colonial defense forces through merit alone. Unmarried, no children. Lives for nothing but the war effort. Something in those words sparked an idea in Liara's mind. Unmarried. A man who had dedicated his entire life to fighting her people, who had never allowed himself the comfort of family or love. Perhaps that was both his strength and his weakness. "Father, what if we could remove their greatest weapon without firing a shot?" "You speak in riddles, daughter." Liara turned from the display to face her father directly. "The humans follow Marcus Kane not because they fear him, but because they believe in him. He has become more than a general, he is their symbol of hope, their proof that they can stand against the Empire. But, what if that symbol could be turned? Understanding began to dawn in the Emperor's eyes. You propose assassination? Our agents have tried countless times. The man is protected like a fortress. Not assassination, father. Assimilation. Liara took a deep breath, knowing that her next words would change everything. I propose marriage. The silence that followed was deafening. Emperor Valdris stared at his daughter as if she had suggested diving into a star. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely controlled. You cannot be serious. Marry a human? A savage who has killed thousands of our people? Think about it logically, father. A political marriage between the imperial princess and the human's greatest general would end the war overnight. Both sides would be forced to negotiate rather than fight. The symbolism alone would be worth 1,000 fleets. The High Council would never approve such madness. The High Council is moments away from authorizing planetary genocide, Liara countered. Which path offers more honor? Her father began pacing the chamber, his claws clicking against the floor in a rhythm Liara recognized from her childhood. He was considering it, weighing the impossible against the unthinkable. Outside the windows, another star flickered and died, another battle reaching its bloody conclusion. Even if such a proposal were made, he said finally, why would the humans accept? Cain has every reason to hate us. His entire family died in our attacks. Because humans are not like us, father. They are sentimental creatures who believe in redemption and second chances. If the offer came with genuine terms for peace, with reparations and territorial concessions, they would at least consider it. And, if they accept? If this impossible marriage somehow comes to pass? You would be bound to a human for the rest of your life, living among our enemies, perhaps never seeing Zephyria again. Liara looked out at the burning stars one final time before answering. If it ends this war, if it saves both our peoples from mutual destruction, then, yes. I would make that sacrifice. Emperor Valdris stopped pacing and studied his daughter with new eyes. She stood straight and proud, every inch the imperial princess, yet there was something else in her bearing now, a resolve that reminded him of his own youth, before the weight of the crown had bent his shoulders. You realize that if this fails, if the humans reject our offer or if this Marcus Cain proves treacherous, you could be stranded in enemy territory with no protection. I understand the risks, father. But, I also understand that our current path leads only to darkness for everyone. The Emperor moved to his private communication console and hesitated for just a moment before activating it. Very well, daughter. I will present your proposal to the High Council. May the ancestors forgive us for what we are about to attempt. As the communication array hummed to life, connecting to the most powerful Zephyrians in the Empire, Liara felt a strange calm settle over her. She had no idea if Marcus Cain was a man who could be reasoned with, if he was capable of seeing past his hatred for her people. But, she knew with absolute certainty that this was their last, best hope for peace. The die was cast. Soon, the most unlikely proposal in galactic history would make its way across the void to the human colonies. A princess offering herself in marriage to her people's greatest enemy, hoping that love might succeed where weapons had failed. She could only pray that Marcus Cain was the kind of man who believed in impossible things. Admiral Marcus Cain stood in the command center of the battleship Defiance, watching the tactical display with the same intensity that had made him legendary throughout human space. The latest engagement in the Proxima system had ended in another victory, but the cost gnawed at him. 700 good men and women would not be returning home, their lives spent to buy another few months of breathing room for the colonies. Sir, his communications officer called out, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Central Command. It's marked as diplomatic contact, highest classification. Marcus frowned. Diplomatic contact during an active war was unusual enough, but the timing seemed particularly strange. The Zephyrians had never shown interest in negotiation before, preferring to let their superior technology speak for them. Put it through to my private office. In the quiet of his personal chambers, Marcus activated the secure channel and found himself staring at the face of President Chen, the leader of the United Colonial Government. The older woman's expression was unreadable, a mixture of hope and concern that immediately put Marcus on edge. "Admiral Kane," she began without preamble. "3 hours ago, we received a transmission from the Zephyrian Empire. It appears to be a formal peace proposal, but the terms are unprecedented." "What kind of terms?" Marcus leaned forward, suspicious. In 37 years of war, the Zephyrians had never once offered genuine peace terms. They demanded surrender or offered nothing at all. They propose an immediate ceasefire followed by a political marriage between their imperial princess and a high-ranking human official. President Chen paused, her eyes meeting his through the holographic display. "Specifically, Admiral, they have requested you." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He sat back in his chair, certain he had misheard. "I'm sorry, Madam President. Did you say marriage?" "The proposal is quite detailed. Princess Liara of the Zephyrian Empire would marry you in a ceremony that would symbolically unite our peoples. In exchange, they offer territorial concessions, war reparations, and a permanent peace treaty." Marcus ran a hand through his dark hair, trying to process the absurdity of it all. This has to be a trap. The Zephyrians don't negotiate, they conquer. And they certainly don't offer their royalty in marriage to humans they consider inferior. That was our initial assessment as well. However, our intelligence suggests they may be more desperate than we realized. The economic cost of this war has been staggering for both sides, but their rigid social structure makes it harder for them to adapt to extended conflict. Standing and moving to the viewport, Marcus gazed out at the stars where so many battles had been fought. "Even if the offer is genuine, why me? I'm their greatest enemy. I've killed more Zephyrians than any human alive." "Which is precisely why you're the perfect choice," President Chen explained. "If their greatest enemy can be turned into an ally through marriage, it sends a powerful message to both sides about the possibility of peace." "The symbolism is perfect." Marcus thought of his fallen comrades, of the colonies reduced to ash in the early years of the war, of his own family whose faces he could barely remember anymore. The idea of marrying one of the people responsible for all that death seemed like the ultimate betrayal. Yet he had also seen enough war to know that vengeance was a luxury humanity could no longer afford. "What are the specific terms?" he asked finally. "Complete withdrawal of Zephyrian forces from human space. Recognition of current colonial boundaries. Establishment of neutral trading zones. And, most significantly, they're offering to provide us with their shield technology and medical advances. The shield technology alone would revolutionize human space travel and defense." It was the one advantage the Zephyrians had maintained throughout the war, their ability to deflect energy weapons with nearly impenetrable force fields. The Council must have debated this for hours. "Longer than that. But, ultimately, we need your decision, Admiral. This proposal specifically names you. If you refuse, there's no negotiation possible." Marcus closed his eyes and tried to imagine what peace might look like. No more morning reports of casualties. No more funeral services broadcast across the colonies. Children growing up without the constant fear of invasion. It was a future worth almost any sacrifice. "I need to know more about this princess," he said. "If I'm going to bind my life to hers, I want to understand what kind of person she is." President Chen nodded and activated a secondary display. The image that appeared showed a tall, graceful figure with the distinctive features of Zephyrian royalty. Princess Liara had violet eyes and silver hair that seemed to catch light even in the hologram. Her expression was serious but not unkind, intelligent rather than cruel. "She's considered one of the most brilliant minds in the Zephyrian Empire," Chen explained. "Educated in xenobiology, political science, and military strategy. By all accounts, she's nothing like the warmongers who have driven this conflict. That could be a carefully constructed image for diplomatic purposes. Possible. But our psychological analysts believe the proposal was her idea. The timing, the specific nature of the offer, even the choice to include technological transfers, it all suggests someone who genuinely wants peace rather than victory." Marcus studied the image more carefully. There was something in the princess's eyes that reminded him of his own reflection after particularly costly battles, the look of someone who had seen too much death and was desperate to end it. The marriage would be real? Not just a political facade? According to Zephyrian law, yes. Once bonded, divorce is nearly impossible. You would be expected to live among them, to become part of their society while serving as a bridge between our peoples. The magnitude of what was being asked began to sink in. Marcus would have to leave everything he had ever known, live among former enemies, and trust his life to people who had spent decades trying to kill him. It was madness. It was also the best chance for peace that either side had ever offered. How long do I have to decide? The Zephyrians have given us 72 hours. After that, they say the offer expires and they will pursue alternative solutions. Marcus didn't need to ask what alternative solutions meant. If the Zephyrians were desperate enough to offer their princess in marriage, they were probably considering weapons that would make the current war look like a minor disagreement. I need to speak with my senior staff. And I want a private channel open to the princess herself. Admiral, is that wise? Direct contact could be seen as accepting the proposal. Madam President, if I'm going to marry someone to end a war, I want to at least have a conversation with her first. Call it old-fashioned human sentiment. President Chen smiled for the first time during the conversation. Very well. I'll arrange the communication link. But, Marcus, remember that whatever you decide, you have the support of everyone in human space. You've given enough for this war. No one would blame you if you chose to refuse. After the connection ended, Marcus sat alone in his quarters, staring at the stars and trying to imagine a future he had never dared to consider. Peace. Family. A life beyond the endless cycle of battle and death. It seemed impossible, yet here was a chance to grasp it. The communication system chimed, indicating an incoming transmission on the private diplomatic channel. Marcus took a deep breath and accepted the connection, finding himself face to face with Princess Liara of the Zephyrian Empire. Admiral Kane, she said, her voice carrying a musical quality that human vocal cords could never achieve. I am honored that you agreed to speak with me. Princess. I'll be honest, this is not a conversation I ever expected to have. She smiled, and it transformed her entire face from merely beautiful to genuinely warm. Nor I. But these are unprecedented times, requiring unprecedented solutions. You realize that many of my people will see this as betrayal? Marrying the enemy is not exactly standard military doctrine. And many of my people will see it as surrender to an inferior species, she replied. But sometimes, Admiral, the greatest courage lies not in fighting, but in choosing to stop fighting. Marcus found himself studying her face, looking for signs of deception or manipulation. Instead, he saw only earnest determination and something that looked very much like hope. Tell me why. Why would a princess sacrifice herself to end a war? Because I believe that our peoples have more in common than they have differences. Because I have seen what this war has cost both sides, and I know that victory for either side would be hollow if built on mountains of corpses. She paused, her violet eyes meeting his. And because I have studied you, Marcus Kane, and I believe you are a man who values life more than vengeance. The simple honesty of her words cut through all his suspicions and fears. Here was someone who understood the true cost of war, who was willing to sacrifice everything for peace. This won't be easy. There will be attempts on both our lives. Our peoples will question every decision we make. Yes, she agreed. But consider the alternative. How many more stars will burn before this war ends naturally? How many more children will grow up as orphans? Marcus thought of his own childhood, of the colony raids that had stolen his family and set him on this path. Perhaps it was time for that path to lead somewhere other than endless battle. If I agree to this, if we somehow make this work, what kind of future do you envision? A future where human ingenuity and Zephyrian knowledge combine to explore the galaxy rather than destroy it. A future where the next generation knows peace instead of war. Her expression softened. A future where two people from different worlds might find common ground, perhaps even happiness. As Marcus looked into her eyes, he made his decision. It would be the biggest gamble of his life, but, then, again, he had built his career on impossible odds. Princess Liara, I accept your proposal. Let us end this war together. The smile that lit her face in that moment was worth all the risks that lay ahead. The wedding ceremony took place on the neutral station of Havens Point, a massive structure built in the void between human and Zephyrian space specifically for the occasion. Representatives from both species filled the Great Hall, their weapons checked at the door but, their suspicions still very much armed and ready. Marcus stood at the altar wearing the formal dress uniform of the Colonial Navy, feeling distinctly out of place among the elaborate Zephyrian decorations that adorned the chamber. Beside him, Princess Liara was resplendent in traditional royal garments that seemed to capture and reflect the light from the ceremonial torches. Despite the circumstances that had brought them together, he found himself genuinely struck by her grace and beauty. The ceremony itself was a carefully crafted blend of human and Zephyrian traditions, designed by diplomatic teams from both sides. When the moment came to exchange vows, Marcus looked into Liara's violet eyes and spoke words that surprised even himself with their sincerity. I promise to protect not just your life, but your people, he said. To build bridges where there were once only battlefields. To prove that peace is not surrender, but the highest form of victory. Liara's own vows were equally heartfelt. I promise to stand with you against all who would return us to war. To show both our peoples that love can conquer hatred, that understanding can triumph over fear. As they exchanged rings, his a simple band of human steel, hers an intricate Zephyrian crystal that pulsed with soft light. Marcus felt the weight of history settling around them. For better or worse, they had just changed the course of galactic civilization. The reception was a carefully choreographed affair, with former enemies sharing the same space for the first time in decades. Marcus watched Zephyrian nobles attempt to make conversation with human diplomats, both sides struggling with cultural barriers that ran deeper than language. The peace was fragile, held together by little more than hope and determination. It was during the third hour of festivities that the first crisis emerged. General Voss, one of Marcus's most trusted commanders, approached him with a grim expression. Sir, we're receiving reports from the outer colonies. Zephyrian ships are moving into human space, but they're not following the agreed-upon withdrawal routes. Marcus felt his blood run cold. If the Zephyrians were violating the ceasefire already, it would shatter the fragile peace before it had a chance to take root. How many ships? Entire fleets, sir. But... Voss hesitated. They're not attacking anything. They're just positioning themselves. Before Marcus could respond, Liara appeared at his side. She had been watching the conversation from across the room and had clearly seen the concern on both men's faces. What is wrong? Marcus turned to his new wife, searching her face for any sign of deception. Your fleets are moving into our territory. That wasn't part of the agreement. Instead of denial or anger, Liara's expression showed genuine confusion. That is impossible. All military commanders were given explicit orders to withdraw to the designated neutral zones. Then, explain why my sensors are showing Zephyrian battle groups throughout human space. Liara's eyes widened in understanding, and then, she began to smile. Admiral Kane, may I ask exactly what these fleets are doing? They're positioning themselves near our colony worlds and trade routes, General Voss answered reluctantly. But, they haven't made any aggressive moves. They are not positioning themselves near your worlds, Liara corrected. They are positioning themselves between your worlds and potential threats. My husband, what you are witnessing is the Zephyrian Imperial Navy taking up defensive positions to protect human colonies. The revelation hit Marcus like a thunderbolt. You're saying your fleets are defending our people? The marriage treaty includes a mutual defense pact, Liara explained. An attack on human space is now considered an attack on the Zephyrian Empire. Our fleets are simply ensuring that message is clearly understood by anyone who might have aggressive intentions. General Voss stared at the princess in amazement. You're protecting our trade routes. Our colonies. Our people. They are our people now, she replied simply. The treaty makes no distinction between human and Zephyrian citizens. Marcus felt something shift inside him, a wall of suspicion that he hadn't even realized was still standing suddenly, crumbling. You could have told me about this beforehand. I wanted it to be a wedding gift, Liara said, looking almost embarrassed. Perhaps I should have realized it might be misunderstood. The moment was interrupted by a new commotion from across the hall. A group of Zephyrian nobles had surrounded Emperor Valdris, and their voices were rising in what sounded like heated argument. Marcus couldn't understand the words, but the tone was unmistakably confrontational. Trouble with your people? He asked Liara. Her expression had hardened, the warmth replaced by imperial steel. Some of the old guard are having difficulty accepting the new reality. Lord Kravex and his faction have never supported the peace initiative. As if summoned by their conversation, Lord Kravex himself approached their group. He was an imposing figure even by Zephyrian standards, tall and broad with battle scars marking his scaled hide. His golden eyes fixed on Marcus with undisguised contempt. So this is the human who has bewitched our princess, he said in heavily accented human speech. You do not look like much for one who has caused us such trouble. Marcus straightened to his full height, falling into the command presence that had served him well in 1,000 confrontations. Lord Kravex, I presume. Your reputation precedes you. As does yours, human. Though I wonder how long that reputation will last now that you have chosen to hide behind our protection rather than face us in honest battle. The insult hung in the air like a challenge, and Marcus felt the familiar surge of combat readiness. Around them, the conversation had quieted as others sensed the brewing confrontation. This was exactly the kind of incident that could shatter the peace before it truly began. My lord, Liara interjected, her voice carrying the unmistakable authority of imperial blood. Admiral Kane is now family. Any insult to him is an insult to the throne itself. Kravex's gaze shifted to the princess, and his expression became even colder. Family? He is a human, child. A clever animal at best. This marriage is an abomination that weakens our entire race. The tension in the hall had become palpable. Marcus could see hands moving toward weapons that weren't supposed to be present, could feel the fragile peace beginning to crack under the pressure of generations of hatred. It was then that Marcus made a decision that would echo through history. Instead of responding with anger or authority, he began to laugh. The sound was so unexpected that everyone in the hall fell silent. Marcus's laughter was genuine and warm, the kind that invited others to join in rather than excluding them. When he finally spoke, his voice carried no trace of offense or anger. Lord Kravex, you're absolutely right, he said, still chuckling. I am just a human. I don't have your strength or your technology or your centuries of civilization. All I have is the ability to adapt, to learn, and to find solutions where others see only problems. He gestured around the hall, taking in both species. Your people are the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Ours are persistent scavengers who refuse to stay dead. Separately, we've spent 4 decades trying to destroy each other. Together? He shrugged. We might actually accomplish something interesting. The simplicity and honesty of his words seemed to diffuse the tension. Even some of the Zephyrian nobles were nodding in agreement. But Kravex was not ready to concede. Pretty words, human. But what happens when your primitive nature reasserts itself? When you betray our trust and return to your savage ways? Marcus looked at Liara, then back at Kravex, his expression growing serious. Then you'll do what you've always done, my lord. You'll defend your people. But I give you my word as a soldier that you'll never have reason to. The word of a human means nothing to me. Then, judge me by my actions, Marcus replied calmly. Time will tell what kind of ally I am. Emperor Valdris stepped forward, his presence commanding immediate attention. Enough, he declared. This is a celebration of peace, not a forum for old grievances. Lord Kravex, you will respect our guests and our new alliance, or you will remove yourself from this gathering. Kravex bowed stiffly to his emperor, shot one final glare at Marcus, and retreated with his supporters. The incident was over, but Marcus knew it was only the first of many challenges they would face. As the evening wound down and the various delegations began returning to their ships, Marcus and Liara found themselves alone on one of the station's observation decks. Through the transparent aluminum windows, they could see the fleets of both species maintaining their careful formations, a visible symbol of the new alliance. "That was well handled," Liara said, moving to stand beside him at the viewport. "Kravex has been looking for an excuse to discredit the peace since it was first proposed." "He's not entirely wrong, you know," Marcus replied. "Humans are unpredictable. We don't follow the same patterns as your people." "I am counting on that unpredictability," she said with a smile. "Zephyrian society has become rigid, trapped by tradition and protocol. Perhaps what we need is a little human chaos to shake things up." Marcus turned to study his wife's profile. "And if that chaos destroys everything we're trying to build? Then, we will rebuild it together, and make it stronger the second time." She met his gaze. "I married you not just to end a war, but because I believe that our children will inherit a galaxy worth exploring." The mention of children sent a strange thrill through Marcus. Family had always been a luxury he couldn't afford during wartime. Now, suddenly, there was a future stretching ahead that included possibilities he had never dared to imagine. "No pressure then," he said with a grin. Liara laughed, and the sound was like music in the vast emptiness of space. "Welcome to marriage, Admiral Kane. I suspect you will find it more challenging than commanding fleets." As they stood together watching the stars, neither of them noticed the small scout ship detaching from the Zephyrian diplomatic vessel. Its course was set for the Outer Rim, carrying news of the wedding to groups that had never supported the peace initiative. The real test of their alliance was just beginning.